Hey, Magic fans, welcome back. This is your captain speaking. Put them trade tables and seat backs in a full upright position. We're going to go through the top 10 Forgotten Realm cards as I see it for the new upcoming set and how it's going to affect Standard. So, with that said, remember this is about cards that are going to affect Standard, not necessarily cards with value. Because it's Standard, cards have to be played across multiple formats for them to get really expensive. But just because they're not played across multiple formats doesn't mean it can't be a powerhouse in Standard. So, remember, this is not the most expensive cards or the cards I think are going to be worth the most, just the ones I think you're going to see the most play in Standard and probably make up some of the most powerful decks that you're going to see. So, as always, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and help put some comments down below to help raise this up through the YouTube algorithm so people can help actually see these videos to help support the channel, and I do appreciate it. As always, in the description, there's a link to the eBay store where you can also help support the channel by buying some cards off of all my box opening videos, and I do appreciate that as well. And without further ado, let's get started with the cards that are going to affect Standard the most, and it is none. So, nice video. Thanks for watching. No, I'm joking. So what's really going on here, guys, is current Standard is so powerful that the current Forgotten Realms cards just don't add up. So, and as you've probably seen and heard a lot about, the current Standard metagame is so overpowered with Throne of Eldraine, Theros, excuse me, and those older sets like that that really push that power level. These cards are nowhere near their power level, and so therefore they're not going to affect the current Standard format. But don't fear, let's talk about Standard Rotation 2022. That's where we're actually starting to see people get excited about Standard again. That's where all these older sets like Throne, Theros, and such as they're going to rotate out, and those power cards are going to be gone, and that's where you start to see Forgotten Realm cards really start to shine in Standard, along with a lot of other cards as well. I mean, we're talking about Keldheim, all of them. They're all coming out of the woodwork. Strixhaven, because they're not going to be overshadowed anymore by those powerful cards in the old set. So, with that said, guys, let's try this again, and we'll look at the rotation in 2022 in 3 months for the new Standard format and what cards from Forgotten Realms are going to affect them. So, what we'll actually start with is the Manlands. So, I didn't put these in the top 10 because I had a real hard time because all these are good. They're all good Manlands. Obviously, a couple of them are better than the other ones. My personal opinion, the green one might be the best, but then again, you're sinking all your mana into it just to do that. The red one's really good too. A case can be made for any of these, but just the fact that we're going to have Manlands in Standard again, that's, not that 4-3 thing for Snow, which is also going to be a big game changer as well, because these Manlands, though, produce colored mana. Unlike the Haven doesn't produce colored mana, which could be a real drawback in a lot of matches you play it in. So keep that in mind, guys. So I have these on honorable mention. Depending on how the format shapes out, it could be very well sketchy which one of these really rise to the occasion, right? Me personally, I think the red one. But so moving on, we'll actually get to number 10, and number 10 is Wish. I think Wish is going to be a really good card, especially in the Standard format, because from what I'm seeing, uh, it appears the format's really going to slow down as far as overwhelming cards that you can't get away from that just alter the game mechanic and just destroy things, right? You can, if you get to 6 or 7 mana, you could wish for a Wrath out of the side of your deck, so forth and so on. I just think this card has a lot of potential. There's a lot of good removal that is cheap. It will let you keep that removal in your sideboard until you need it, if you need it. So I'm not saying this is going to be a big powerhouse, but I think depending on what comes out in Innistrad, this could be a game player in Standard if someone finds just that right deck, right? All right, so moving on, we'll go to number 10. Now we're talking about the Demilich. Now later I'm going to do another one for impact on Modern, because this would be a lot higher if I was considering Modern, right, guys? But just from a Standard standpoint, Even though it's not going to be as powerful in standard, the abilities that it has still makes this card a powerhouse. The ability for 4 mana to make a 4/3, yes, it's all cost blue, but you could play this in a mono red deck and literally just fire off 4 spells and cast it for free. Um, Now, I know that's asking a lot, right? But a blue anything deck basically means that if you have sorcery spells in your deck that are different colors, it's the same effect as having a blue for this card. Um, Plus this extra ability for it to pull cards out of the graveyards and recast them, plus recasting it from the graveyard by sacrificing instants and sorceries. Yeah, this is gonna be a thing. Um, in standard, it's gonna be a little harder to pull off. This is gonna be probably a lot higher on my modern list. I'm gonna tell you that because this thing is like Arc-like Phoenix in a whole different color, and that color is already the color that wants to play cantrips. So with that said, I think this is high on the wagon to get some things done and actually see some deck play and shape the standard format of 2022. Next, moving on, we have Xanathar, Guild Kingpin. So the reason he's on here and even a little higher than Demilich is his ability to play cards off your opponent's deck at any time is just bonkers. Not to mention the fact he could be that closer that Blue's been looking for. Um, when you play black for your removal, blue for your counter spells, play that deck. You can play one of him, ways to get him out of the graveyard maybe. Like there's tons of possibilities with this. And being a 5/6, he could be really hard to deal with. Just because his toughness is so big. So red decks are going to really have a problem. So this could be in a Dimir deck that could maybe be a powerhouse as long as there's not too much weenie running around beating everybody up before they get to turn 6. Next, we have the Ingenious Smith. So it's only number 7 on the list, but I think mono white decks are really going to be a thing, and equipment and artifacts are going to really be a part of that. And for a white and 1, for a 1/1 that gets bigger at once a turn for every artifact you play and has the ability to dig 4 deep in your deck to find that artifact, seems really powerful to me. I mean, this is almost like a mini Stoneforge Mystic, and some modern decks are running it like it is one. Um, I may have put this a little too low on this list because as synergies come out and other decks come out, I really think this thing is going to be a powerhouse just because it does so much for 2 mana that any weenie deck, especially white weenie, is going to love to have this because you get to draw those artifacts for free that either stunt your opponent, stop them from doing things like portable holes, or just man up your creature and punch people in the face. I mean, oh, it just seems so good. I mean, imagine this with the hammer for 3 mana that comes into play and auto equips. You're basically making this guy a 6/6. Seems bonkers, and it flies, right? Like there's so much good stuff about this. I may have judged this a little too low, honestly. The more I think about it, but with that said, it is a very narrow deck, so it may not get there. But man, I hope it does because this feels like Stoneforge to me. Moving right along for number 6, we have the Monk class, and a lot of people aren't real big on this card. But when I look at this card, guys, here's what I see. You know, the second spell each turn costs 1 less. You can lay it on turn 2 before things start getting out of hand. And the second spell costing 1 less is just amazing. Not to mention that for a blue and a white, which you can do later, it says return 1 target non-land permanent to owner's hands. This is a bounce spell that sits on the field that you can just keep 2 mana up for whenever you need it. You know, and especially against aggro decks, this might be what you need to make them pick up a creature when they swing, um, to buy you that time. And when you get to 3 and you get to exile a card every turn, I mean, the second card costs 1 less to cast, so it could be a land, it could be 2 spells, which then it makes it really easy to dual spell every turn. I mean, it's already in blue white where you have wraths and draw cards. I just really see this being abused as a card. I mean, even in multiples, because the second spell each turn costing 1 to 2 less, plus being able to flip over the top couple cards of your deck, makes it really easy to find those win condition guys. I really think this might have some legs, and that's why I've rated it at number 6. Moving on, we're at number 5. We have the Grandmaster of Flowers, Bahamut himself, the 7/7 Dragon God creature once he gets there. For 4 mana, this 3 loyalty Planeswalker is super powerful. When he gets to 7 more counters on him, he becomes a 7/7 Dragon. He only goes up, he never goes down, so he's really good in those white weenie decks. Plus, not to mention, not only can he protect himself by targeting a creature without first strike, double strike, or vigilance, making it so it can't attack or block. If the creature can attack or block because it has one of those things, then the other +1 lets you get a monk of the open hand to make a blocker. So this just seems really, really good to me. And there's so many ways to get ahead of this where you get some extra mana and get this out early. Like, it can just be so powerful. So I think it's maybe the new white thing for most blue decks when it comes to maybe a win condition. There's lots of good win conditions though for white blue. I'm being honest with you. But even in a mono white weenie deck, this also seems awesome because when you play monks, you cast a second spell every turn. They get bigger, and you can get them out of your graveyard, so you always have a creature. So yeah, I really think this is easily number 5, and I think it's probably going to see a lot of play depending on how the format shakes up. Next, moving right along, we have Kailyn, the Reclusive Painter. So I put this at number 4. Yeah, it's really high above the lot of the other cards, but for a red and a black for a 1/2 that makes you a treasure, and then by using treasures, things get +1/+1 counters. This thing is so powerful. With Goldspan Dragon that makes extra tokens or extra treasure tokens, and then they sack for extra mana. I mean, just wow. You sack 1 treasure for 2 mana, and then something gets +2/+2 counter. Not to mention, this is basically a mana elf for 1 time. Like, for example, Gilded Goose was a great card on turn 1, right? This is just as good on turn 2 because the treasure taps for mana to give you a 4-drop. It's so powerful. There's so many things to deal with it, and you can do with it. It's easy to deal with, yeah, but as a legendary creature, you could easily run 4 of them. Like, I just see this as a powerhouse no matter what you're doing, especially in those quick aggro decks where they're looking to make big creatures quick at a cheap mana cost. Those treasure tokens are going to make those creatures really big as you start pounding people in the face. So, moving right along to number 3, we have the Werewolf Pack Leader. This card is bonkers for green. And everybody's talking about how good green is. And it's looking like right now there's a lot of good decks out there, not just green. But 2 mana for a 3/3. Oh my god. Plus the ability to become a 5/3 with trample. That's insane. Plus the pack tactics ability for it to attack and let you draw a card in green. I mean, how easy is it to have 6 mana or 6 power to punch somebody in the face in green on turn 2 or 3? Not real hard, especially when you're running cards that'll think similar to like Giant Growth or what have you. I mean, there's a green instant right now for 2 mana that says +3/+3 and this creature must be blocked. If aggro decks or creature decks in general become a thing, you could easily lay this on turn 2, and then every creature they lay after that, make this a 6/6, swing in, draw a card, kill their creature. Like, just wow. There's so much stuff you could do with this. It's really pretty insane. And that's why this is at number 3, because this is really going to be a powerhouse that really makes mono green a force to be reckoned with. Next, moving right along, we have number 2, the Gelatinous Cube. That's right, the ooze that no one likes. There's always room for Jello, though. So, the Gelatinous Cube, there's nothing better than a 4/3 creature. 4 mana may seem a little underpowered for what it does because the mana cost is real high, but the ability of this creature to just jerk a creature out of the battlefield that's not an ooze, put it under it. It's a creature with removal on it, plus the ability to dissolve that creature so the opponent can't get it back on if you're really careful is amazing. And with tokens and everything else that gets generated sometimes, it's easy if someone has a real large token creature to lay this, eat the token, and now the token's just gone. Makes it real good in draft, real good in sealed, and I think this is going to be a powerhouse in some black decks depending on how they go with aggro versus control. But all in all, even in control, this is still a card you want because it's a creature, it's removal, it buys you time. I just don't see how this isn't going to be a staple standard, or a staple in the new standard of 2022, especially when it's really looking like it's going to be a beatdown fight. And finally, guys, my number one pick of the day for standard is the Loyal Warhound. That's right, guys. You gotta love a good boy. Uh, the reason I picked this is, once again, this is probably not gonna be a very valuable card, and not gonna be expensive, but for a white one and a 3/1 with vigilance, and when it comes into play, you can search a basic planes up and put on a battlefield tap. This takes away uh, being on the draw from your opponent. Uh, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that a little better. You'll be on the draw. This takes away your opponent's first turn because on turn 2 or turn 3 or whatever turn it is that they have more land than you, ideally turn 2, imagine on their turn 2 they lay a creature. On your turn 2, you lay some other creature. On their turn 3, they lay their third land and they lay another creature. Now on your turn 3, before you lay your land, you lay your Warhound. You get to get a land out of your deck. You get to thin. You get to fix your mana, and then lay your land for the turn. Plus, it's a 3/1. It's gonna kill things. It has vigilance, so if they don't want to swing in, you can swing at them because if they have something they don't want to block with because it's valuable, they're gonna take damage without you having to trade damage because this thing will never tap. In all the white stuff that we've seen so far, with Bahamut and Monk of the Open Hand, and some of the other cards that are white in this set and other powerhouse white cards that we have, I really see this being a big player um, in the format as far as the number one key beatdown card in every white deck. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't play this in any white deck because it just fetches you land. A worst case scenario, it's a 3/1. The only way you wouldn't play this is if you're not running creatures and you're a control deck in white. Like, that's the only way. Like, any other white deck that's going to deal damage and attack should have this. You have equipment and everything else you can put on this thing. Once again, it's got vigilance. It fetches your land up. It's going to make it easy for you to do stuff. This, along with the mini Stoneforge and Bahamut, like, I already see a white deck forming, and there's lots of other good white cards, guys, that are already out there. So, for me, this is my number one pick for new standard rotation 2022. Tell me what you think below in the comment section about my picks. Do you have a favorite pick for 2022? What cards or deck are you really looking forward to play after rotation when the standard format might actually be a little tolerable and not so toxic? So, with that said, guys, thanks a lot for watching. I do appreciate it. Look out tomorrow as I give some predictions for not only Modern this weekend, but also cards I think are going to be worth holding on to because they're going to have some value in the long run. So, with that said, guys, thanks a lot for your time. I really do appreciate it. This is your captain speaking, and as always, it's pre-release weekend. I'll see you across from the game tables tomorrow, cracking up, hopefully, a loyal Warhound. See you there, guys.